Hello and welcome to the Game Line, Wales Online's live rugby debate show. My name's Matt Southcombe and I'm delighted to be joined by Mark Orders and Ben James, our guy out in Cape Town, where the Lions have just beaten South Africa 22-17 to get the Test series off to a winning run and taking a 1-0 lead in the Test series. Ben, we'll start with you. Just to mention as well, quickly, a bit of housekeeping, guys. If you want to send your questions in or comment below, we'll get through as many as we can. Ben, what's the reaction to that straight off the bat?
I mean, I feel like at half-time we probably all thought we were going to be right in very, very different pieces. It felt bleak. I think it was 12-3 at half-time, but it certainly felt like a bigger scoreline just because of the way the Box came out of the traps and sort of dominated the Lions in the way that we feared they would. You know, they play a very aggressive style of rugby, a very smart style of rugby, based on sort of, kicking, putting the opposition under pressure, forcing mistakes, getting their maul and their line out on top. And that's what they did for the first 40 minutes. And then the second half, we saw the Lions do, as Nick Simon sort of mugs around in the background there, we saw the Lions do to the Box what the Box had done in the first half. And that's the remarkable thing, is that they effectively beat them at their own game in that last 40 rather. And sure, there were contentious decisions and there was a lot of action down sort of this end in terms of tries and TMOs, and Marius Jonker had a sort of busier Saturday than he would have liked, but what a start to the series.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, what was your take on how all that unfolded?
Yeah, well, I'd echo exactly what Ben said, really. I think the absolute turning point for me was piece of really, really bold captaincy from Alun Wyn Jones in going for the flag instead of the sticks with Dan Biggar early in the second half. And the Lions got them all together, and Cowan Dickey went over, and they didn't really look back after that. I really, really was impressed with the Lions' sort of physicality in the second half, especially. I thought Courtney Laws had an outstanding game, and so did Maro Itoje. And those two were at the heart of everything that was good about the Lions. And they got their tactics really, really right in the second half, put loads of pressure on South Africa. And South Africa's lack of Test rugby, over the last couple of years, I think, told in the second half. And Lions were able to get the job done and really, really took a lot of guts and character. But yeah, it was a terrific effort in that second half.
Yeah, Ben, I'll just come back to you then. What was going wrong in that first half? It kind of felt like the Lions never really got a foothold in the game at all. South Africa were fairly comfortable and pretty much in control of everything. Where was it going wrong for the Lions early doors?
Well, I think it's just a case that the Box were winning collisions at will. I think they did a real number on it defensively. It was just outstanding defense by South Africa. Sort of they kept the Lions sort of tucked into that middle third of the pitch. Sort of, they couldn't really get out of that. And from there, the Box can do what the Box do, which, as I said before, is kick to put teams under pressure. The Lions were sort of kicking on the back foot. We saw a lot of kicks in the first half. The Lions would go two phases. Big would put it up, or Ali tried to put it up. But they were never doing it from the front foot in that first 40. So the chase was always sort of struggling to get up there. And from there, then, South Africa had that platform to sort of continue putting the pressure on. And it was a bit of a vicious cycle in that first half. And the Lions did remarkably well to turn it round. And, when you think about it, the fact that I think all the combinations in this starting 15 have played, 70 minutes of combined rugby together. I think the half-backs might have had 20 minutes off when Ali Price came off the bench at Edinburgh. I think Henshaw and Daly had 50 against the Stormers last week. Otherwise, this is a completely sort of scratch team in terms of combinations. Even when Farrell came off the bench and they went to sort of 10, 12, 13 with Biggar, Farrell and Henshaw, they'd only played, again, 20 minutes in Edinburgh against Japan. So to sort of pull things around when at the first half it didn't really look sort of clear what the message was, that's a hell of a feat for one guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, I'll just come back to you on this. I mean, discipline seemed to be a real issue for the Lions early doors. They seem to be giving away needless penalties. I remember Tom Curry giving 2 away and Elliot Daly giving another one away, and Pollard was just, taking those and saying thank you very much.
Yeah, you're right. It's one of Tom Curry's was for a late tackle, and Daly sort of gave a couple away. I think they conceded 7 penalties in the first half. But as Ben sort of hinted there, I think it was the pressure that South Africa were putting them in under. Sorry, I thought that Faf de Klerk's box kicking in the first half was really, really good, and slowly, as I say, there was a massive momentum shift early in that second half when the Lions scored that try. I think you've got to give a bit of credit as well to Dan Bigger as well for his goal kicking, which is sort of like Neil Jenkins really back in the day in '97, and he was keeping them in the game. And I think he missed one, but he nailed the rest, and that you can't sort of overstate the importance of that. And Bigger did what he was there for, and it was that sort of staying in the fight and then relying on your bench then in the second half as well to give you extra momentum. I thought the front row made a big impact. Ken Owens, Kyle Sinclair, and Makavuna. I thought they made a huge impact. And a lot had been said about the South African bench front row, and I thought the Lions lads actually eclipsed them on the day.
Yeah, fair enough. We've got a comment coming in here from Peter Ship saying the Lions won the aerial battle in the second half, and that was the key difference between the sides. Ben, I was going to come to that second half. I think Peter's made a fair point there. I think Lions started to get a lot of change out of the kicking game in the second half, and South Africa's discipline started to let them down. Is that the way you saw it, and is that really what got the Lions back into it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Peter's spot on there, and it's not a sort of a new fact. This isn't rocket science. This has been the way to beat the Boks for 2 years now. You think back to the World Cup. How did New Zealand beat them in the pool stage? They kicked behind them. They got them moving. They didn't let them reload. We had the pleasure of Jacques Nienaber being sort of sat about 15 yards to the left of us, and the constant message from him was about getting bodies up on the floor and reloading. That's what the Boks want to do. They want to get the pressure in defence. They want to keep as many bodies on their feet, and they want to isolate the ball carrier. So if you kick behind them, Wales did it at the World Cup, New Zealand did it at the World Cup. That's the way to beat them. So we knew this was going to be the way. It's just in the first half, they didn't have the platform. But when they did in the second half, they did it very well. They got their maul working. They started getting change out of the South African scrum, as Mark says, and they started getting penalties at the maul. But even then, if the kicking went slightly wrong, we saw for the try that was disallowed where Daly was sort of tugging on the Pimpy shirt. That came from a South Africa kick that wasn't taken cleanly by Liam Williams, but in the end, Cheslin Colby knocked it on. This test series is going to be decided on the aerial battle, and it's going to be massively fine margins.
Yeah, but Ben touched on it there, Mark. I think Marius Jonker had a busier day than he might have liked. Obviously, a lot of controversy and debate surrounding his last-minute appointment as the TMO. There were 2 tries disallowed for the Springboks. Willie LaRue had one chalked off, and then Damien De Allende had one chalked off as well. And there was a tip tackle from Hamish Watson that is, the kind of challenge that has been carded in recent years. Did the Lions get the rub of the green in that respect?
Well, first thing, I think Gatlin. I think Warren Gatlin actually put a dot of pressure perhaps on him, with a sort of not a clever call, but just sort of letting it be known. Presumably, it was reported that Gatlin wasn't particularly pleased that a local TMO had been brought into the picture. But I thought the TMO got the calls pretty much spot on. The first one was really sort of a touch and go affair. There wasn't much in it at all. But again, I thought that LaRue was, what I could see from the TV angles, LaRue was marginally just ahead of the kicker. And that was the call that Marius Jonker went with. And I kind of sided with him. I think he pretty much nailed all the big calls. Sugata would have had nothing to complain about there. And there were fair calls as well.
Yeah, Ben, what did you make of the tip tackle? I mean, I know obviously you've been out in South Africa for a while, so you may not have seen it, but Jim Botham was guilty of a tip tackle against Argentina in the second test for Wales a couple of weeks back, and there were two very similar incidents, and Botham didn't get a card either. I probably thought perhaps both were yellows, but what did you make of it out in the ground? A lot of uproar coming from the South African media about that one.
Yeah, it's a tough one to sort of see because where we're situated, you've got a big screen sort of just to us, which is slightly hidden by sort of concourses, and then you've got one in the far corner. So sort of the limited view I had of the Watson tackle, it's a job to tell. It did seem to just go beyond the horizontal. So yeah, I think had a card been given, I don't think he'd had any complaints. But if this was a match with no quarter given, I remember there was a couple of tackles in the first half. I think Am made a massive read on Daly, and then the clerk made a huge hit on Hogg, and I was surprised that neither were particularly looked at as what looked like high hits. But this is the thing in test rugby. It's just such physicality, and it's only a minor sort of error by Hamish Watson. But yeah, he possibly lucky not to spend 10 minutes in the bin.
Yeah, got a comment coming in from Ian Jones here saying it was never in doubt, was it? Though Hamish Watson should have been sent to the sin bin. So there we go. Harley Worthy has come in with saying Botham's tip. The player was basically on the floor anyway. The Watson one was more of an obvious tip. So there we go. Those are the thoughts of the commenters coming in. Mark, I'll come back to you. Standout performers then. Obviously, a very close encounter. Wasn't perhaps the most entertaining of matches, though it always felt like it was kind of on a knife edge. Who were the standout performers in that match for you?
Yeah, I mean, we've already touched on them. And I thought that the two English boys up front, I thought they were outstanding. Courtney Laws in particular, but then Maro Itoje, I don't know how many turnovers it was. I counted 3-4 myself, including the one at the end as well. And it had to be him that made it. He's just a player who never gives up. And he always plays in the faces. He's on the case of the opposition from minute 1 to minute 80. But when the game was when the Lions were really struggling, I was impressed with Laws as well. He just kept going throughout the first half. He was really good, and he emptied the tank until the moment he went off. 8 minutes from time. I thought they were outstanding, really, really good. The Lions did get their kicking game right as well. As Seb mentioned, Bigger with his goal kicking too. And I thought that Alan Wynne-Jones was very, very good in defence. I thought the bench was excellent for the Lions, particularly the front row. Tyke Furlong did well too. A couple of wonky throws from Luke Cow and Dickey. But there we are. It's but overall, yeah. For me, the pick were the two English lads.
Ben, who are the ones who stood out for you?
Can't argue with any of that. I think Itoje in particular was outstanding. In that sort of first half, way the Boks were getting the pressure on the Lions. It sort of felt like the Lions were having to sort of take two punches just to throw one back, and Itoje was usually the man sort of throwing those punches on the sort of rear guard effort. There was one fantastic turnover sort of near his own line. I think Faf de Klerk got a little bit annoyed with it, and it was a bit of pushing and shoving, but Itoje was just outstanding. I thought Curry was good despite the number of penalties. I thought he was really good. And you talk about that sort of that bold call for the line out. Well, he's the man who chased that kick at the start of the second half and put in a huge hit and forced that penalty. So I thought he was really good. But yeah, Itoje and Laws. Courtney Laws at one point, I think he got the ball in a bit of space, sort of it fell to him, and you could just, I can't repeat the word that South African coaches use, but I think they were terrified to sort of see a powerhouse like him get the ball in open space.
Yeah, let's keep it a PG family show, son. All right, let's move on to the last point then. Obviously, a win for the Lions is fantastic. They're off to a flyer. They've now got 2 opportunities to win the Test series and couldn't really ask for much more. But it wasn't a perfect performance. They got themselves into that hole in the first half. Mark, what sort of things do they need to fix ahead of next week?
Yeah, they were giving away too many penalties. We already touched on in the first half, for sure, and they need to sort of sort that out. For me, the midfield could have been a bit tighter. I don't know what the missed tackles figures were. Thought, I don't want to necessarily be overly negative after a win. I thought Elliot Dudley had a few down moments, shall we say, in defence, but it was a big game. There's a lot of pressure on. I thought that's an area that could be tightened. Maybe loose head prop as well could be a bit tighter. But of course they were hit by Wyn Jones's withdrawal before kickoff. I think Sutherland gave away a penalty, but that's probably being really, really harsh. I think if they tighten up their discipline, and what's going to happen next week, it's always the same in every series. The second test is always the most physical and the most brutal. Was in 1989 in Australia. It was in 1997 in South Africa, and 2009 as well in South Africa. So you can almost guarantee that the Lions will have to front up in the first half and deal with that physicality. It's going to be blitzkrieg rugby from South Africa in that opening half next week. If the Lions can weather the storm, they're sort of a halfway home.
Yeah, and just as a final word, Ben, because I know we need to rush off to the press conferences, what are the sort of final thoughts that you'll take away from that in terms of what the Lions perhaps need to look at for next week?
I agree with Mark. I don't think there's going to be many tactical tweaks because, as I said, we know what the Boks are going to bring, but they're just going to bring it probably harder and for longer next week. They're going to have a match under their belts. They're going to be able to last that little bit longer in what they do. So for me, with the Lions, I don't think there'll be any sort of major tactical tweaks. It'll just be a case of tightening things up, making sure that, as Gatland said numerous times in the store, that you stay in the arm wrestle for as long as you can, because that's what the Lions did tonight. They stayed in the arm wrestle. And ultimately, against the Boks, you do that long enough, you'll get the reward.
Absolutely. All right, guys, thanks for sending in your comments. We've got to keep it short and sweet today because there are press conferences about to get underway. We're going to hear from Warren Gatland and Jacques Nienaber shortly, and you'll be able to follow all of that over on Wales Online.